First at 9. This is Other Derana 24/7.
Sri Lanka pays tribute to those who have rendered service to the nation. President appoints Cabinet Subcommittee to look into Hambantota Port investment plan. Prime Minister reiterates no room for foreign judges. Sarath Veerasekara counters pro-LTTE diaspora. An army intelligence officer arrested over Keetnoya assault. Good evening. This is your primetime news at 9. Taking a look at your top stories, the investiture ceremony of conferring national honours on distinguished personalities was held at the Nellum Pokuna Theatre yesterday under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and Speaker Karu Jayasuriya were also in attendance as 89 distinguished personalities were bestowed with awards for their exceptional service to the nation.
The nation's highest honour, Sri Lanka Abhimanya, was bestowed upon late musical maestro Pandit W.D. Amaradeva, whose award was accepted by his wife Vimala Amaradeva. Abbas Ali Akbar, Professor Colvin Gunaratna, Dr. Devanesan Nesaiya, Nandadasa Rajapaksa, Lata Walpola, Mineka Prasanna Wickremesinghe, Professor Priyani Soisa, Amaradasa Gunawardana and Tissa Devendra were bestowed with Deshamanya Award in recognition of their distinguished service to the nation. Professor K.M. De Silva was also bestowed with the Deshamanya Award. Devanayagam A. Suvaran, Dr. Lakshman Veerasena, Leslie Shelton Devendra, Captain M.G. Kularatna, Susantika Jayasinghe, Ranjan Madugalla, Shan Wickremesinghe, Dr. Publis Silva and W.K.H. Vegapitiya was bestowed with Deshabandhu Awards. Channa Wickremesinghe accepted the award on behalf of Shan Wickremesinghe. Professor Nimal Senanayake, Dr. Bandula Vijayratna, Dr. Colvin Samarasinghe, Professor Harendra De Silva, Professor T.K. Vimal Padmasena, Professor Errol Radcliffe Jans, Professor Lal Chandrasena, Professor M.W.J.G. Mendes, Professor M.M.R. Vas Jayasekara, Professor Sarath Kotagama and Professor Tissa Vitarana were conferred with Vidya Jyoti Awards. Dr. Sarath Gunapala, a senior research scientist and group supervisor at NASA, and Siddhartha Kaul, the president of SOS Children's Villages, were presented with Sri Lanka Ranjana Awards, bestowed upon non-nationals honouring their meritorious service. 22 Kalakirti Awards, 7 Sri Lanka Shikamani Awards, 10 Vidyanidhi Awards, 13 Kalashuri Awards, 2 Sri Lanka Tilaka Awards and 2 Veera Pratapa Awards were also bestowed by the President to awardees. This is the first time in 12 years that a National Honours Investiture ceremony has been held.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe reiterates that no international judges will be involved in local judicial proceedings as the Constitution does not make allowances for such involvement. The Prime Minister made these comments in Parliament responding to a question raised by parliamentarian Dinesh Gunawardana.
Sri Lanka government has co-sponsored the resolution. We have agreed to establish courts. ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවට විරුද්ධව අපේ ඇමති කෙනෙක් කොහොමද මේ වගේ ගිවිසුමකට අත්සන් තබන්නේ? ඒක තමයි ජනාධිපතිතුමා කිව්වේ මම පත් කරන්නේ නැහැ විදේශ නඩුකාරවරු. ඉතින් අගමැතිතුමා මේ ප්‍රශ්නෙට උත්තරය දෙන්න.
Now we cannot establish judicial mechanism. You can only do it under the law. And according to the constitution, all our judges have to be Sri Lankan judges. Now the honourable member is trying to distort our constitution. I would like to tell the honourable speaker, we never went before the Darusman panel. We didn't go to New York and speak to him outside and not go into this thing. They know that you all went and had communication with the Darusman panel and you all exchanged letters. I will table in the House the full exchange of letters and the discussions that took place and the assurances that are given. මේ රටේ විවස්ථාව උල්ලංඝනය කරන්න නැහැ කියලා අපි කියනවා.
On the same note, the joint opposition urges President Maithripala Sirisena to remove from the UNHRC resolution on Sri Lanka the clause that calls for the involvement of foreign judges for an inquiry.
හෙට මානව හිමිකම් පිළිබඳ මහා කොමසාරිස්තුමා ශ්‍රී ලංකාව පිළිබඳ වාර්තාව කවුන්සලයට ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා.
The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights will present the report on Sri Lanka to the Council tomorrow. The final decision will be made on Friday. In the 6th clause of the 2015 resolution, it is clearly stated that we would accept foreign judges. It is further reaffirmed in the 2nd resolution, which will be passed this week, making the situation worse. With the pledges Sri Lanka has made to the UNHRC, we become a nation that contradicts its president's and prime minister's stance on not welcoming foreign judges. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that foreign judges will not be accepted because it goes against the Sri Lankan constitution. This is an incredible contradiction. How can the government agree to an act that violates the country's supreme law? Foreign Minister Mangala Samaravira says that the human rights resolution contains only recommendations. We earnestly request President Maithripala Sirisena to not co-sponsor the 2nd resolution.
අපි ඉතාමත් ඕනෑකමින් අතිගරු මෛත්‍රපාල සිරිසේන ජනාධිපතිතුමාගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා කිසිසේත් මේ දෙවන යෝජනාවට සම අනුග්‍රහය දෙන්න එපා කියලා.
The army corporal arrested in connection with the abduction and assault of journalist Keith Noah was remanded until the 30th of March. The suspect, arrested by the Criminal Investigations Department last night, was produced before the Mount Lavinia Additional Magistrate Lochana Abewikrama today.
Keith Noah, the former deputy editor of English newspaper The Nation, was abducted on the 22nd of May 2008. A day later, Noah was dropped off near his residence, having been severely assaulted. On the 23rd of February 2017, the Criminal Investigation Department arrested 3 army officers, including an army major, in connection with the incident. Later, 2 other army corporals were arrested and remanded after being produced before the Mount Lavinia Magistrates Court. Meanwhile, yesterday, the Criminal Investigation Department arrested an Army intelligence officer who is said to be 34 years old and a resident of Wagowa.
Minister of Special Assignments Dr. Sarath Amunugama says cabinet approval was granted to establish a new entity as a joint venture of the Sri Lankan government and China Merchant Company to manage the Hambantota port. Meanwhile, Acting Minister of Ports and Shipping Nishantha Muthuhettigama also told Ada Derana that the Ports Authority and the Ministry of Ports expressed objection to the move through a note to Cabinet.
Discussions were held during the visit of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe to China last year, where investment opportunities available in Hambantota were discussed. The Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka introduced 2 parties, China Merchant and China Harbour, due to their interest in investing in Sri Lanka. The government's economic committee then instructed a committee comprising ministerial secretaries to select a suitable party proceed with the investment. Thereby, the committee decided to hand over shares of Hambantota Port to China Merchant Company. However, objecting to this, Sri Lanka Port Authority said that China Merchant Company was selected, ignoring recommendations made by them as well as objections of the subject minister. However, objections to the Sri Lanka Port Authority said that China Merchant Company was selected, ignoring recommendations made by them as well as objections of the subject minister. However, on December 5th last year, Minister Malik Samaravikrama submitted a cabinet paper regarding the framework agreement on handing over shares to China Merchant Company, for which cabinet approval was granted. Following the framework agreement, the concession agreement was to follow. Meanwhile, today at the Cabinet, Minister Dr. Sarath Amunugama submitted the draft agreement between Sri Lanka and China Merchant Company for the establishment of joint venture for the management and development, which the minister added that it got the approval from the Cabinet.
Cabinet today approved a draft agreement between the Sri Lanka Ports Authority and the China Merchant Corporation. This will be a Sri Lanka registered company, so it will belong to Sri Lanka. 80% of the shares will belong to the Chinese company, 20% to SLPA. However, within 5 months, Sri Lankan companies or agencies can buy an extra 20%, which will bring the share distribution to 60-40. Secondly, the Chinese company will pay $1.1 billion to Sri Lanka and also invest another 600 million on updating the port. Normally it's about $500 million. This alone will bring close to $2 billion, which will strengthen our economy quite a lot.
Meanwhile, on behalf of the Subject Minister Arjuna Ranatunga, who is attending a summit in Morocco, Acting Minister of Ports Nishantha Muthuhettigama made a note to the Cabinet expressing objection over the Cabinet paper.
The Cabinet paper regarding the agreement on handing over the Hambantota port was produced today. SLPA and the Port Ministry expressed objections in regard to the agreement. We made a note to the Cabinet including some changes. President Maithripala appointed a subcommittee to take a decision which will be favourable to Sri Lanka from the financial side under a legal background.
Subsequently, taking into consideration the current developments, President Maithripala Sirisena decided to appoint a special cabinet subcommittee to evaluate roadmap of the agreement. 5 ministers, including Susil Premajayantha, Patali Champika Ranawaka, Faiza Mustafa, Sarath Amunugama and Arjuna Ranatunga are appointed to the cabinet subcommittee.
Addressing the 34th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council, Rear Admiral Sarath Weerasekara said that war crimes have been committed by the LTTE and not by the Sri Lankan Army according to international human rights law. Weerasekara went on to request the UNHRC to appoint a special representative to investigate the issue.
The High Commissioner of the Human Rights Council, Zaid Rad Al Hussein, provided the government and non-government organizations with an opportunity to express their views on human rights in Sri Lanka.
The international community failed to protect nearly 146,000 Tamils from genocide. Unfortunately, we have lately seen member states like US, UK, India, China, Pakistan have weakened their resolve to put pressure on Sri Lanka to respect international law for their regional geopolitical interest. Denying right to self-determination to independence to Elam Tamils is gross human right violation.
Tamil National Alliance representatives of the Northern Provincial Council, M.K. Shivajilingam and Anandi Shashidharan, also expressed their views at the summit.
Mr. President, in May 2009, Sri Lankan military forces made a genocide war against Tamils by killing an estimated 70,000 to 100 people in a short period of 6 months. In the framework of the long-standing occupation of the Tamils homeland by the Sinhalese state of Sri Lanka, we denounce the contradictory external policy of the European Union by developing enhanced commercial and political relationship with the occupying powers while presenting themselves as leaders in the protection and promotion of human rights.
Responding to the non-government organization representatives' comments, Rear Admiral Sarath Weerasekara had this to say.
I speak on behalf of Sri Lankan wartime leaders and men who defeated LTTE, the most ruthless terrorist organization in the world. The resolution 30/1 against Sri Lanka was based on OISL report of the High Commissioner with war crime charges. The Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka, without the approval of the President and the Cabinet, accepted the report and co-sponsored the resolution with USA. I am tabling 2 reports, one in which the world-renowned experts have clearly mentioned that we have never committed war crimes, and the other prepared by an eminent board vetted by the former Chief Justice, proving how the High Commissioner report seriously flawed with contradictions, omissions and lies. We had in our country was a non-international armed conflict, and the applicable laws are the international humanitarian law and not the international human rights law.
And with that, we take a short break. I'll be back with your business stories on the other side. In your business stories, Sri Lanka's year-on-year inflation has increased to 8.2% in February from 6.5% in January this year. Part of the reasons for the increase was due to low price levels in February last year, with the contribution of inflation to food group in February 2016 at 0.3% negative compared to 4.5% in February this year. The National Consumer Price Index for all items show an increase of 0.54% in February 2017 compared to the previous month. The moving average inflation for February 2017 was 5.1% against 4.6% in January this year. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that new legislation will be brought forward to legalise all of the Treasury bills issued thus far. The Prime Minister made these comments in Parliament today, responding to a question raised by parliamentarian Dinesh Gunawardena.
Honourable, you had a question you raised on the 7th, no? On the Treasury bills?
The day government ran away and abdicated.
He didn't run away and abdicate, but
No,
you raised
no one
it.
was here.
You were not there.
No, the question was not allowed to be raised, and government abdicated. They gave up and went away.
Government didn't abdicate and go away, but if you want clarification, I will certainly give clarification on this matter. We have been raising the loans and then only gazetting it at the end of the year. Now this has started from 1999. Now I found, for instance, what the loans that were authorized by Mr. Choksi was gazetted by Dr. Sarath Amunugame as minister in a different government. So this is the procedure that has been going on for a long time. Now this is not very satisfactory. On the whole, the legislation is also not very satisfactory. We were done in 1939. No one anticipated it, and sometimes you can raise the amount you want, or you can raise the lesser amount, or you raise a more large amount when the issue is taking place. That flexibility has to be there. First, we will be following this procedure as in the ordinance, but we will bring new legislation. We have asked the Attorney General to look at it and the legal draft to draft it. The new legislation will set up a new procedure where once the minister takes a decision, it will be advertised in the papers, and maybe the House is in charge of public finance. We can inform the House of those advertisements. Then we are also bringing the legislature provision on two other issues. One is declaring legal all the treasury bills that have been issued so far. Some people may challenge it by saying we raised the money before the gazette was issued and therefore it's not legal. The other issue is the private placement. Now we have also had private placement of bonds. According to, of course, when this government came, we had made a public commitment not to have private placement, to have public auctions and to use some other transparent system. Nevertheless, private placements have taken place, and it came out in the inquiries that there was no formal decision even on private placement. Otherwise, we may have though they say all bonds issued are valid in the hands of the bona fide holders, the problem may come that someone might challenge the central bank when we go to redeem the bonds. Therefore, we will bring legislation.
The developments of the Commission of Inquiry looking into the central bank bond issuances. Sittings carried out today were held with the former central bank governor Arjuna Mahendran in the audience for the first time. The commission today focused on how Secretary of the Monetary Board H.A. Karunaratne was removed from his position during Arjuna Mahendran's tenure as central bank governor. We take a look at that story now.
The Commission of Inquiry began hearings today with two special requests from attorneys representing the former central bank governor Arjuna Mahendran. A group of attorneys headed by the President's Counsel Ramesh De Silva requested the Commission to provide prior information related to names of potential witnesses and copies of relevant documents to be taken up during sittings. The Commission, after much debate, agreed to make such information available as long as they are not categorized as confidential under the Commission's regulations. Additional Solicitor General President's Counsel Dappala de Oliveira argued against granting permission to the second request made by President's Counsel Ramesh De Silva, asking the Commission to issue a directive to the Central Bank to avail copies of minute documents containing Treasury bond auction details during Arjuna Mahendran's tenure. However, the Commission will take a decision on Thursday. The additional Solicitor General then argued that it is unprecedented for a potential witness such as former Governor Arjuna Mahendran to be present while another witness is providing testimony. The Commission, however, noted that a group of attorneys representing the former governor are allowed during sittings and that proceedings are open to the public. Senior State Counsel Shahida Barry then brought the Commission's attention to how the Secretary of the Monetary Board, H.A. Karunaratne, was removed from his position during the tenure of Arjuna Mahendran. The Monetary Board Secretary revealed that he was removed from office on the 28th of June 2016. Karunaratne revealed that a disagreement between him and former Governor Mahendran regarding a letter on the appointment of a senior deputy governor led to his removal. H.A. Karunaratne will testify for a fourth day tomorrow.
And Colombo equities closed in a mixed note today as investor activity recorded thin levels. For more details, we have Imeshri Fernando from the Colombo Stock Exchange.
The benchmark all-share price index gained 0.42 points to close at 6,041.59, while the S&P Sri Lanka 20 index lost 0.93 points to close at 3,447.59. The turnover was 283.3 million rupees with 10.96 million shares changed in hands in 2,138 trades. Top 5 gainers of the day were SNB Leasing, non-voting, Blue Diamonds, non-voting, Swarn Mahal Financial Services, Central Investments and Finance, and Renuka Foods, non-voting. Today's foreign purchases were 224.1 million rupees and foreign sales were 63.28 million rupees.
Here's a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies during the day. And we'll be back with sports news on the other side of this break. Welcome back. In school rugby, Trinity College have taken home the Canon de Sarum Shield with a 15-point win over St. Thomas's College at the CRNFC last evening. Despite a spirited performance and a late fight back by St. Thomas's, Trinity extended their unbeaten streak in the league and remain in pole position in their segment with one match to play.
St. Thomas's were forced to field a depleted lineup with their number 8 missing due to illness and their skipper unfit to feature in the full 80 minutes. The Thomians were able to keep Trinity scoreless for the first 20 minutes, but let in 3 tries before the end of the first half to trail 19-0. The second half was more evenly matched, but the Lions were able to answer St. Thomas's brace with 2 tries of their own, leaving the score on 29-14 at the final whistle.
And in football, Cristiano Ronaldo won Portugal's Player of the Year award yesterday in a ceremony at Estoril. Ronaldo first accepted an award on behalf of the Euro 2016 winning national team, and coach Fernando Santos received an award for the Coach of the Year. Speaking to the audience, Ronaldo reminded them that many, including some of them, had not believed the national team could win the European Championships. He paid tribute to coach Fernando Santos for convincing their players that they could achieve it. Fittingly, it was Santos who presented Ronaldo with the Player of the Year award.
Essa alegria e nós jogadores acreditarmos que era possível.
And we'll be back with your world stories after this break. In your top international story, the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, James Comey, says that the FBI has not seen any evidence to support U.S. President Donald Trump's allegations of wiretapping by his predecessor, Barack Obama. He was testifying at a hearing before the U.S. Congress focused on the ongoing investigations regarding alleged links between Russia and the United States President Donald Trump's election campaign last year.
Director Comey, when questioned on President Trump's accusation that he had been wiretapped on former President Barack Obama's orders, said that there was no evidence from the FBI or the U.S. Department of Justice to support the claims made by President Trump via Twitter.
So no individual in the United States can direct electronic surveillance of anyone. It has to go through an application process, ask a judge. The judge can then make the order.
So President Obama could not unilaterally order a wiretap of anyone?
No president could.
Director Comey also confirmed that the FBI is investigating alleged Russian interference in last year's presidential election.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of your Primetime News at 9. For the very latest, you can log on to www.otherderana.lk or follow us on @otherderana via Twitter or like us on Facebook. And before we go, we would like you to take a look at some visuals off the coast of Batticaloa, where the world's first purpose-designed aircraft carrier, HMS Helm, sunk during the Japanese attack of Ceylon during World War II on the 9th of April, 1942. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana, 24/7.